300. Okay, so let me see if I'm on. See if it's streaming. Okay, I should be on. Let me see if I do it again. I don't see it. I'm going on to Facebook right now just to see if I'm streaming. Oh, there we go. Okay. Do it again. I don't see it. Okay, let me turn it way down. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's 1,314 days. And we, of course, have been working with Mexico and with the Department of State in Mexico. That's been a focus. Of course, there's many facets to this because we are working with all the open records requests. We're also continuing to go through the 800 pages of the CID report. That does not include PI Phil Waters. Why doesn't it include that? It needs to include his report, doesn't it? um, because Phil Waters went and met several times with Dirty Agent Marlon Soto, and Dirty Agent Marlon Soto decided that he can just wash Richard's file from that. I mean, there's so much interference, there's so much meddling in Richard's case, deleting information, deleting CCTV footage, deleting video footage, um, um, just putting in uncorroborated information from people that have something to lose in this. And so let's talk tonight about Nadal Baim. Nadal Baim was, you know, uh, the walked into the Dollar General, FBI. He pronounced himself FBI. He pronounced that Richard's search was over. Really, that's what he did because he said, "Take down the flyers. Take down the flyers. The search is over." Right? That's what he did, and he proceeded to tell the employees there, specifically the cashier, that the whole story. There's a lot to it, but in a nutshell, that the FBI was looking for Richard in Juarez, Mexico, his remains, his partial remains. We added that because we know that it was partial remains, and that they found him, that they found those partial remains. And we called the Department of State to corroborate this. And Agent Ryan McMillan, that works for the Department of State there in Juarez, who had come to that meeting. Remember the Task Force Find Richard Halliday meeting where they were not in uniform? Where the two generals were not in uniform, the military was not in uniform. It was a staged. It had no operational order. There was no organization to it. Nobody had any tasks. It was a task force without any tasks. So we met Ryan McMillan at that meeting. He came over to El Paso onto Fort Bliss to meet with us, and he gave us his card. We still have his card, and anytime there was anything to give him a call. So of course, um, when we found out who Nadal Baim was, which was in February of 2021, we know the exact date. Um, Rob has kept a journal for, most of his adult life, and so he was just very used to keeping a journal. And so we have, a lot of very, very good information. And between him keeping a journal and all of the live streams and the screenshots and the phone calls, the recordings, um, the tips and everything that we, the letters that we've received and everything. Um, from all of that, we've pieced together, a good idea of what's going on um, in our son's case. And it's taken a while, and I apologize that it's taken a while. Uh, you know, our billions of dollars, our trillions of dollars are being misused. A matter of fact, they're being extorted, they're being money laundered. I would call them money laundered because we have been made investigators of our son's case against the obstructionist command, Richard's command, or obstructionist, the CID obstructionist. And I would say Macmillan is also obstructionist agent in the Department of State in Juarez, because we called him right away and he did tell us, because the truth is life, right? I mean, you go through life and you have the truth and you have events, and you can't say that the sun didn't rise when the sun did rise, right? um, it's kind of pulling, the emperor doesn't have any clothes. You can't say the emperor doesn't have any clothes when he's when you can't say that the emperor has fine clothes on when he's standing in front of you naked, right? You can't say it. Um, but so you're going to get truth. The truth comes out. Okay. And even though Ryan Macmillan was trying to save his hide or save his job and go along with the corruption and everything so that he could have his nice, um, you know, uh, 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 very nice little job there, cushy little job. Um, and he really didn't have to do anything, right? He could just play with his children. We have that where I called him to talk about our missing son, and he's like, right now I'm playing with my kids. I don't really have time to talk to you. I met you at the meeting, and I gave you the card, and I said call me, but um, you know that was just because it was a staged task force. Don't you know that? Don't you know that? I mean, he didn't say that to me. He just said, I'm with my kids. Um, in a way that was not appropriate. I can say that. Because, of course, I have 9 grandchildren and I understand, but it wasn't appropriate, and it wasn't in an appropriate way. And the reason why it's fresh on my mind is because I just listened to it again. I just listened to it again, and I'm just like, wow. It was just so cold blooded. So cold blooded. Um, anyway, so he corroborated um, what Nadal Bayim was saying, and the truth of it is that Nadal Bayim um, was really a breath of fresh air at the time, and I said it numerous times, because when we called him up in February of 2021, he actually admitted and told the truth. And, watching this Fannie Willis trial where they say, oh, I just can't recall, oh, I just can't recall, oh, I don't know, I can't recall, oh, that was a speculation, oh, I can't recall. It is so, I think he should just be, you know, I know he was bald, but I'd grab him by the ears, that guy, you know, grab him by the ear and put him in cuffs and put him right to prison. I mean, this is such a waste of our country's resources to watch this garbage. Where you're a lawyer and you're dealing with a district attorney and all their friends and her lover and everything, and you say you can't recall, you can't recall, you don't remember, you can't recall, and you speculate and speculate. This is the garbage that we've been dealing with in our son's case. And today, watching that, it's like pull him by his ear and put him in cuffs and put him in prison for obstructing justice. We need to know um, when Fannie and Wade, you know, first went and had their, I guess they're rolling their hay or whatever, and became very personal with each other, because that is a conflict of interest. It's not that we want to know that they what they did; it's that it is a conflict of interest, and it's like this with Lilani Hart. Um, she has a conflict of interest with so many men, right? With so many men, it's like she's uh, definitely, it's for those in particular positions with particular ownership or powers, and like the hotel manager, in order to run some prostitution through it, or with Tavita Nusa, to be able to tamper with files and somehow extort her husband for lots of money by doing this criminal complaint, and her relationship with Nieto and Kachurga, and that's why Nieto never arrested her. These conflicts of interest, and with the DES, Thomas Kane, and we could go on and on with these conflicts of interest. Um, and this is what's happening in our law enforcement. This is what's happening in our Department of Justice. And that's why you have the likes of Ryan McMillan acting the way he did. And then here comes Nadal Baim, and he just tells the truth. And it's like, wow, wow. Um, is he good? No, he's not good in this, y'all. But it was really a breath of fresh air to have someone confess. Okay, confess. And, be it if he wanted to or not, he did. And he has connections. He has connections. He's not just some guy like the obstructionist command of Richard want us to believe. Right? They want to obstruct justice. They want to sabotage. So these obstructionists told us he's just some guy, which is so illegal. It's so criminal. It's absolutely criminal what they did. And but he's not just some guy. He is the father-in-law. He has a record too. He's because he's Palestinian. He has a record. He has an accent, and he is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado, of G3 in the 32nd ADCOM. And what did the Army do? Well, what did Bradford Bugado do when he was confronted to put in there? Let's go talk to let. Okay, so the CID has two, different two standards. If you're a whistleblower, they're going to take out their claws on you, right, and retaliate. But if you're Bradford Bugado, who has all these conflicts of interest with Nieto, with Cynthia Hernandez Nieto, who works in intelligence on Fort Bliss, of course with Angela Kachurga, and with Marlon Soto Hernandez, right? So they all have this conflict of interest. And what do? They take out the pillow. They take out the pillow and they say, "Oh, oh, Bradford, you have been employed now for a while, honey. You got to be deploy. We got to get you out of here quick. Did they do that to Glendon Oakley Jr.? Did they do that to Richard? You know, they did it very quickly with Brad. They protected him, Bradford Bugado, from accountability. That's what they protected him from. But where the soldiers that needed real protection, like Richard and Asia Graham and Glendon Oakley Jr., they left them there to lose their lives. To lose their lives. They put them out there to the wolves when they should have protected them. And so Bradley Bugado, he was deployed, and anyway, they didn't do that with Richard, even though Richard had requested deployment. He requested it. He put in a request that he wanted to be deployed, to get out of there. Because who knows what they were doing? These were sex cult people. They were probably raping people. Asia Graham was raped. We have reports where they bind people up and stuff the LSD papers down their throat. They beat them while they're bound up. We have reports that there was, Richard was reporting them, and that there were audits, that there was an audit going on Fort Bliss. And those reports, we're really going to look into what the true nature of these reports are, because these audits, have to do with M4s. They have to do with M4s, and they have to do with these brown tip bullets, right? And they have to do with modifying M4s. And so our intelligence is absolutely, and we have breaking news. There's so much in all of this, because I'll finish up with Bradford Bugado, who, what did he do? He betrayed his father-in-law. He betrayed his family, right? To say, oh, we don't have a good relationship, to save his skin, right? That's the type of leader we want in the military. No, with leaders like that, who needs enemies? Because if he's going to betray his own father-in-law, his own family, his own son, because Grandpa had, Grandpa T-shirt that they gave him. And, he says, oh, we didn't have a close relationship. That's a bunch of baloney, because as soon as we called him, we looked him up. We wanted to know who he is, because of course we did. Of course we looked him up. Because, number one, he said the search for Richard was over. Take down the flyers. Number two, he said that the FBI were looking for Richard's remains in Juarez. Number three, he said Richard was dead. Of course, we're going to look him up, gather the evidence, and turn that in. We turned everything in. The video and the CCTV footage to the FBI, the CID, and, having friends like Nieto there, of course they didn't. They obstructed justice again. They obstructed the search for Richard and also the investigation. And there's very little on the whole thing with Nadal Baim in the 800 pages. So we'll get back to. I even mentioned PI Phil Waters, which is like, what? Because that's another very big deal. That's all about Richard turning in sex tapes. So, yeah, there is so much interference in Richard's search and investigation that's very, very clear. That is the circumstantial evidence, even hard evidence, and irregularities that point to the foul play, and you know, the audit there of the weapons, because we have news on that uh, from Brigadier or about Brigadier General David Stewart, uh, that we knew that he was like, he reminded me of the scarecrow. Wanted a heart, no, wanted a brain, right? He wanted a brain. The No, he wanted a heart. The scarecrow wanted a heart, and the lion wanted the brain, right? Or vice versa, whatever. Um, but he reminded me of the scarecrow. I don't know why. And the way he was with his staff, and anyway, you know how Dorothy was connected to him. It was just very clear that there was a friendship there. And so that's how Brigadier General Stewart seemed to me, is that, he was dedicated in a way that you wanted to be his friend. You knew um, that he was going to try hard. And we saw it with our own eyes. And I have compared it so many times. It was so heartbreaking. But I met his wife, and his wife even drove by and got prayer candles for Richard, and was always trying to encourage us um, in our quest to find out what happened with Richard. And so we found out today that they've been retaliated against. And, this is a general level being retaliated against. That's an indication that, of course, the Walmart mass shooting case and Richard's case is just um, the the fruits or the results of a much bigger problem. And we believe that Brigadier General Stewart gave us a piece of that, a gift of that, which is that because we had to go back and review our notes on it. Because remember, he told us that the barracks were, well, the indication was that there was an audit going on. That there was an audit going on, and they found all of the weapons, and they had to go through. And so the barracks were part of it. But there was also the tactical move storage units that had weapons, and our reports, um, you know, coming back are a lot of M4s, a lot of M4s, and a a lack. The smuggling seems to be with the bullets. Okay, of course the smuggling is with the weapons also, but you know, so we'll see. We'll get more details and let you know. But there were also modifications being done on the weapons. Um, so we'll get back to you about more on that audit. And what is really interesting is that Dirty Agent Marlon Soto also corroborated that there was an audit going on Fort Bliss. And this audit was not during the time of Stewart, okay? He had just got there when we got there. And then just right after we got there, um, then Sean Bernabe was allowed to, well, he was there, but he was in quarantine. So, and then he was able to meet with us a little bit later. I guess he said he was in quarantine, but, they all lied so much because once they got out of the view of the public. They did what they wanted. It was just the whole mandate thing was such a lie. It was just, y'all, being behind the scenes and seeing it, it just really gives you an education on how they mess with us. They really mess with us, and they are way overpaid. And I heard that they are going to cut the Pentagon, that they're going to cut troops more, and they need to. They need to. And absolutely, you know where they need to cut? The 44 four-star generals, all the flag officers. That's where they need to cut. Okay, we're so top heavy, and they've just gotten out of hand. They are serving foreign and domestic enemies, and even Brigadier General Stewart. It was heartbreaking because the retaliation, and I'm sure his wife was heartbroken for this whole thing, um, because the the change in him was so apparent. He was so heavy. The burden was so heavy, and it just turned him into um, zombified him or something, you know, orked him. He was orked. He was orked. It was really, really sad to see the change in him. And that last meeting was so disgusting because, the betrayal was so evident. And, he had to pick. I think he had to pick either his family or us. I think that's what he had to pick. And of course, he picked his family, and we don't blame him at all. But it was really disgusting to see that they would do that to such a man. Sean Bernabe never gave us any indication that he had any good in him at all. The man was just up to no good from the minute we met him with his SJA and the SJA, and so he absolutely needs to be arrested. He's just such an obstructionist with the SJA. Um, and it's just heartbreaking to see it all. It really is, because this is a military that we have loved so much, and the betrayal is just really heartbreaking to see it. So they really lied to us about who Nadal Baim was and is, and Nadal Baim didn't lie. He told us. And even though he doesn't play a good part, he at least had the character to tell us. And we will be always grateful for that. So it's kind of like some moments with Belen Rocha. She just could not help herself but tell us a little bit of truths. And we'll be grateful for that too. Some people just have to tell, they just can't live in that false reality, no matter how much money or whatever is being offered to them. They just can't do it. And so that was Nadal Baim. But that was not Sean Bernabe. He's totally a deceiver. He's totally a snake through and through, with the SJA, with Jessica Veltri, with dirty agent Marlon Soto, with Tavita Nusa. They are just very, very dirty snakes. And so we will continue this, because if they're allowed to stay in their positions, why would we ever need enemies or be afraid of enemies, right? Because they are going to hurt. They probably already did hurt more soldiers and service members by their betrayal and their objectives and their agenda to meet their personal needs, and not the needs of the country, not to obey their oath. And that is very, very clear, that they had no intention of even thinking about obeying their oath. So, and that's a national security threat. That is a national security threat. So, and leaders are very, very important. So, if you're a three-star general and you're up to no good, you can do a lot of harm to country, to your own troops, to other countries. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So, with this audit situation up in center now, going through the notes because it's remarkable how God's hand is on this all the time because here we are trying to assemble or decide on what we're going to give to the Department of State, what they would need. They don't need everything, but they do need to know that Nadal Baim, FBI agent, um, proclaimed that Richard's case was done, his search was finished, and that the FBI had found partial remains in Juarez, Mexico. They did need to know that. That was very, very important. And that he is um, associated and connected, closely connected to the G3 32nd ADCOM through his son in law, Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado. So that's very, very important information. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you for coming on, for your prayers and your love. And another breaking news is that Richard's missing persons yellow Interpol notice has been withdrawn. And thank you to Delaris. Um, and I believe her in this. She says that the notice can only be withdrawn by that authority that put it there in the first place. So I think that would be Dirty Agent Soto. I think so, but I'm not sure. And so we've asked who withdrew Richard's um, yellow Interpol notice. And what does that mean? Does that mean that they have now designated him as deceased? Okay, because the only other narrative that they have put in front of us is that he's missing. And so, why would you take that off of the Interpol? Because absolutely, the border is right there, and this is international. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions to that. So, thank you so much. Um, we're just doing a lot of letters in the background. Uh, know that there's a lot going on, and we're not going to give up. And this puts our life at risk because we're dealing with the cartel. The cartel is absolutely involved in this. Um, and so, we need your prayers and we need you to share. We need you to share all of this. The more people that know about the case, the more that we will be kept safe. So, thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing.